My 25th birthday is here, and it seems like any other day. On my way home from work, I stopped at the grocery store to buy myself a cake. It's a simple chocolate one with pink icing that reads Happy Birthday. Even though I didn't anticipate a lot of festivities, I had hoped that this year would be different. Nobody even looked up as I entered the front door. My stepfather Greg was lounging on the couch watching television while Mom was in the kitchen making dinner. As usual, his children, Jason and Amber, were riveted to their phones. "I'm home," I said as I set the cake down on the kitchen counter. Mom looked over. "Oh, Robin, is that a cake?" Abruptly, her eyes grew wide. "Wait, is today your birthday?" And there it was, the well-known pain of forgetting. "Yeah," I said plainly. "Today." Greg, Amber, and Jason wandered into the kitchen. He responded, "Well, happy birthday," with that phony smile I've come to despise. "We didn't bring you anything, but gifts aren't the most important thing, are they? It's attention." As though they hadn't forgotten about me entirely until I reminded them, Mom nodded in accord. I thanked them nevertheless, forcing a grin. We had a clumsy birthday tea around the table. I excused myself to take a quick shower and change out of my work clothes. I came back to find that they had eaten most of my cake, leaving me only a pitiful little piece. Normal. Reminiscences came flooding back as I sat there plucking at my little slice of cake. This disrespect wasn't brand new. Since Mom married Greg when I was 18, 2 years after Dad passed away, that has been my reality for the past 7 years. We were both devastated by Dad's passing. Within months of receiving a cancer diagnosis, he passed away. I tried to be strong for both of us when Mom broke down. I was just 16 at the time, and I was having a hard time dealing with my loss while I watched my mother descend into despair. In fact, I felt relieved when she met Greg at work a year later. I felt satisfied when he brought back her grin. In my mind, the timeline is flawless. When they were married, I was 18, and I had already left for college in another state. I was unaware of how differently they viewed me at the time. I only went home on vacations, and I was seldom home. Instead of sitting at home, I spent the majority of that time catching up with pals from high school. Mom contacted me crying, so I moved back home after graduation. Greg is experiencing health issues, she clarified. He can't work full-time anymore, and my salary isn't enough for the bills and the kids. Jason was 12 and Amber was 14. So I consented to remain. I returned to my childhood bedroom after landing a respectable job at a nearby company as a marketing assistant. I gave Mom a significant portion of my paycheck each month for bills, groceries, and other expenses. I didn't mind at first. They were family, after all, and family helps each other out. That's what Dad would have wanted. But things changed when I hit 23. The complaints started small at first. "Robin, don't you think you could contribute a bit more to the household expenses?" Mom would ask. "Everything's getting so expensive these days." Greg would grimace whenever I took work calls in the evening. "Do you have to talk so loudly?" Some of us are trying to relax after a hard day. Then Amber started eyeing my room. "My room is way too small," she whined one night at dinner. "Robin's room is twice the size." It's not fair. I sat silently through these complaints for months, trying to be understanding. But one night, after a particularly long day at work, where I'd been passed over for a promotion, I snapped. "Robin, you really need to start giving us more for expenses," Mom said as we sat down for dinner. "The electric bill was outrageous this month. And could you stop using the bathroom for so long in the mornings?" Amber added. "I'm always late for school because of you." "Yeah, and you eat all the good snacks," Jason chimed in. Something broke inside me. I threw my fork and knife onto the table with a loud clatter. "Are you kidding me right now?" I said, my voice rising. "I pay all the bills in this house, and in case you've all conveniently forgotten, this house legally belongs to me. Dad left it to me in his will. I'm letting you live in my house." The silence that followed was deafening. They all stared at me, shocked by my outburst. Mom's face flushed red, and Greg suddenly became very interested in his plate. They knew I was right. The house was mine. Dad had left it to me specifically before he died, along with a small inheritance that I'd used to pay the property taxes when I turned 18. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Mom kept shooting me disapproving glances, but I refused to back down or apologize. Later that night, there was a soft knock on my bedroom door. Mom entered without waiting for my response. "We need to talk about what happened at dinner," she said, her voice stern. "You shouldn't have spoken to us like that. Bringing up that you own the house was completely unnecessary and hurtful." Hurtful? What about how you all treat me like I'm a walking ATM and nothing more? Mom's eyes welled with tears, her go-to tactic when confronted. "You're being selfish, Robin. We're family. We've given you a home." "I've given you a home," I corrected her. "This is my house. See? There you go again. Your father would be so disappointed in you." With that parting shot, she left, closing the door firmly behind her. I lay back on my bed, tears streaming down my face. Was I being selfish? The doubt crept in, as it always did. Dad had raised me to value family above all else. But I don't think he'd intended for me to become a doormat. Still, I couldn't shake the guilt that followed me to sleep that night. That conversation happened 2 months ago. Things have been tense since then, with everyone walking on eggshells around each other. And now here I am, turning 25, with nothing to show for it except a tiny slice of store-bought cake and a family that barely remembers I exist. Christmas arrived faster than I expected. Despite the tension following my birthday fiasco, I still wanted to make the holiday special. I spent weeks carefully selecting gifts for everyone. A designer scarf for Mom, a premium whiskey set for Greg, the latest video game for Jason, and expensive perfume for Amber. I also gave Mom extra money for holiday expenses. "We're staying home this Christmas," Mom announced last week. Just a quiet family celebration. Her emphasis on family felt pointed, as if reminding me of my supposed selfishness. I wrapped all the presents meticulously, hoping they might mend the rift between us. Silly me. Christmas morning arrived with the smell of Mom's cinnamon rolls wafting through the house. For a moment, it felt like old times before Dad died, before Greg and his kids moved in, before I became the family ATM. I watched as they opened my gifts. Mom seemed genuinely pleased with her scarf, while Greg raised his eyebrows appreciatively at the whiskey. Jason immediately tore into the game packaging, and even Amber managed a reluctant thanks for the perfume. Then Mom handed me a small, poorly wrapped package. "This is from all of us," she said. Inside was a plain gray sweater with a clearance tag still attached. I recognized it from the sale rack at Target. $12.99, marked down from $24.99. I forced a smile. "Thank you." We gathered around the dining table for Christmas dinner. Mom had outdone herself with a feast: turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, 3 different vegetable sides. The formal china was out, something reserved for special occasions. As we finished the main course, Mom cleared her throat. "I have an announcement to make." She reached for Greg's hand, smiling at him proudly. Greg has fully recovered and returned to work full-time. Not only that, but he's received a promotion. He'll be the new regional manager, with a significant salary increase. Everyone clapped and cheered. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Finally, I could cut back on supporting them financially. Maybe I could start saving for that trip to Europe I'd been dreaming about. And Mom continued, turning to me with an expression I couldn't. "Quite rude. We've decided it's time for some changes around here. Since we no longer need your financial assistance, we think it's best if you move out." I nearly choked. "What?" "Amber will be taking your room," Mom continued as if she hadn't just dropped a bomb. "She's growing up and needs more space." Amber clapped her hands excitedly. "I've already picked out new paint colors. Thinking of a lavender theme." I stared at them, dumbfounded. "Let me get this straight. I've been paying your bills for 3 years, buying your groceries, supporting this entire household, and now that you don't need my money anymore, you're kicking me out." It's not like that, Robin. You're 25 now. Don't you think it's time you had your own place? Most people your age aren't still living with their parents. Most people my age aren't financially supporting their parents and step-siblings, I shot back. Amber laughed. If you want, you can still pay our bills and buy groceries. We won't say no to free money. Everyone at the table laughed, except me. I felt my face burning with humiliation and anger. Without another word, I got up and walked to my room, slamming the door behind me. I lay on my bed, listening to them continue their Christmas celebration downstairs. Their laughter drifted up through the floor, each burst like a knife twisting in my chest. As I lay there, memories of the past 3 years replayed in my mind like a movie reel of disappointments. The time I missed a friend's destination wedding because I couldn't afford both the trip and that month's bills. The promotion I turned down because it would have required relocation. The car I still drove, Dad's old Honda with 200,000 miles on it, because I couldn't justify buying a new one when Mom was always asking for just a little extra this month. And my birthdays. God, my birthdays. The past 7 years of forgotten or minimally acknowledged birthdays came rushing back. The time Mom got me dish towels. The year Greg's gift was a $5 coffee shop gift card. The birthday when Amber and Jason didn't even acknowledge me, too busy with their own lives to notice. Meanwhile, I remembered how I'd gone all out for their celebrations. For Mom's 50th, I organized a surprise party and got her the watch she'd been eyeing for months. For Amber's Sweet 16, I contributed heavily to the lavish party Greg and Mom threw her. For Jason's birthday last year, I helped buy the gaming console he wanted. The anger built inside me like a pressure cooker. They'd used me, all of them. And now that Greg had this promotion, they were discarding me like yesterday's trash. Well, they seemed to have forgotten one crucial detail. This was my house. Dad left it to me when he died. He knew how much I loved this place, with its creaky third stair and the window seat in my bedroom where I used to read for hours. He made sure I would always have a home. And now they wanted to take that from me too. My sadness was rapidly giving way to a cold, calculated anger. If they thought they could push me around, they had another thing coming. I wasn't that naive 18-year-old anymore, desperate for her mother's approval and willing to do anything to keep peace in the family. I wiped my tears and sat up. Enough was enough. I'd been a doormat for too long. It was time to stand up for myself, really stand up, not just momentary outbursts followed by guilt and acquiescence. I grabbed my laptop and started researching property laws, eviction processes, tenant rights. Even though we had no formal rental agreement, I was the legal owner of this house. It was time I started acting like it. As midnight approached and the sounds of celebration finally died down, I made my decision. They wanted me out? Fine, but they wouldn't be staying either. This house was mine, and I was done sharing it with people who didn't appreciate me. I woke up early the next morning with a clear plan. The house was silent. Everyone was still asleep after their Christmas celebration. I threw on some clothes and crept down to the garage where Dad used to keep his tools. There, I found a sturdy wooden stake. Back in my room, I grabbed a piece of thick cardboard from my closet, the kind that comes with new dress shirts. Using a red marker, I carefully wrote, "For sale," in big, bold letters. Next, I packed a bag with essential clothes and toiletries. I'd already found a hotel nearby with vacancy, nothing fancy, but clean and affordable for a few days while I figured out my next steps. Downstairs, I slipped out the front door and drove the stake into our front lawn, attaching my makeshift for sale sign. The ground was partially frozen, making it difficult, but my determination gave me strength. Once it was secure, I stepped back to look at it. Something about seeing those words made my decision feel real. I got in my car and drove away without looking back. The hotel was quiet, most guests having left after Christmas. I checked in, carried my bag to the room, and finally allowed myself to breathe. Turning on the TV for background noise, I sat on the bed and thought about what I had just done. 3 hours later, my phone exploded. First came the calls, Mom, Greg, even Amber. Then the text messages started pouring in. Robin, what is the sign doing in our yard? Mom's first text read. Call us back immediately, demanded Greg. I ignored them all until the count reached 20 missed calls. Then I composed a single, clear message. The house is mine. I'm tired of how you all treat me. I've decided to sell it and buy myself an apartment near work. You should start looking for a new place to live. I don't want to see any of you right now. Mom's response was immediate. You can't do this to us. This is our home too. Where are we supposed to go? You're being cruel and greedy after everything we've done for you. I laughed out loud at that and turned off my phone. I needed space to think without their guilt trips and manipulation. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange limbo. I extended my hotel stay, ignoring the growing number of missed calls and messages. On January 2nd, I found a short-term rental apartment and moved my few belongings there. My next step was contacting a lawyer. I found Thomas Harrington, who specialized in property law, and scheduled a consultation. So, he said after I explained my situation, you inherited the house from your father when you were 18, correct? Yes, along with a small amount of money that I used to pay the property taxes. He nodded, making notes. And since you moved back at age 22, you've been paying the utilities and contributing significantly to household expenses? Yes, about 70% of all household costs. And there was never any formal rental agreement between you and your mother? No, nothing written down. Thomas leaned back in his chair. Miss Coleman, legally speaking, your position is very strong. You own the property outright. You've been paying the taxes and utilities. Without a lease agreement, your mother and her family are essentially guests in your home, so I can ask them to leave. Absolutely. We can prepare an eviction notice, giving them reasonable time to vacate. 2 weeks is standard in cases like this. If they refuse to comply, we can involve the authorities. Relief washed over me. Let's do it. We drafted the eviction notice that day. It was formal and direct, giving Mom and Greg exactly 14 days to vacate the premises. Thomas suggested sending it by certified mail, ensuring they couldn't claim they never received it. 3 days later, Mom called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. We need to talk, she said, her voice strained. Face to face. I agreed to meet at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. When I arrived, Mom and Greg were already seated at a corner table. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed. Greg looked uncomfortable. You can't be serious about this eviction, Mom said as soon as I sat down. I'm completely serious. But we have nowhere to go, she continued, tears forming. 2 weeks isn't enough time to find a place and move. You should have thought about that before telling me to move out of my own house on Christmas Day, I replied calmly. Greg leaned forward. Look, Robin, we were upset. Things got said that shouldn't have been. You can come back home. We won't even ask for money toward the bills anymore. I shook my head. It's too late for that. You made your feelings clear. Mom started crying openly now. You're being so cruel. After everything I've done for you, raising you, caring for you, I'll take you to court. I'll sue for all bills I paid while you were in college. I'd anticipated this. I already discussed that with my lawyer. If you sue me for all bills, I'll countersue for 7 years of rental payments for you living in my house. The average rent in our area is $1,800 per month. That's over $150,000 you owe me. The color drained from her face. She grabbed her purse and stormed out without another word, Greg following close behind. As I paid the bill and walked to my car, I realized this wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about standing up for myself and recognizing my own worth. For too long, I'd allowed them to take advantage of me, to make me feel like I was the selfish one for having boundaries. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. I threw myself into work during the day and spent evenings researching home renovations and local real estate values. If I was going to sell the house eventually, I wanted to get top dollar for it. The day of the eviction arrived. Thomas, my lawyer, suggested he accompany me to the house just in case things got complicated. I agreed, grateful for the support. We pulled up to the curb at exactly 10 a.m. A moving truck was parked in the driveway, half filled with furniture and boxes. Mom, Greg, Amber, and Jason were all outside, working to load their belongings. When they spotted my car, they froze. Mom's face hardened into a mask of anger. Greg put his arm around her shoulders. Amber and Jason glared at me with undisguised hatred. "Good morning," Thomas said as we approached. "We're here to ensure the eviction proceeds as legally required." "We're going," Greg said tersely. "No need for the legal muscle. We've rented a place across town, month to month, until we figure something out." I nodded. "I'll wait in my car. Just let me know when you're done." As I turned to leave, Mom called out, "Is this really what your father would have wanted, Robin? For you to throw your family out on the street?" I stopped and faced her. Dad wanted me to have security and people who loved me unconditionally. He wouldn't recognize the woman you've become. Her face crumpled, but I felt no satisfaction in her pain, just sadness for what we'd lost. For the next 3 hours, I sat in my car, watching them carry out their lives piece by piece, furniture, appliances, boxes of clothes and books. Occasionally, Thomas would check on the progress, ensuring they weren't taking anything that belonged to the house itself. Thomas and I waited until the moving truck and their cars had disappeared down the street before entering the house. I braced myself for what I might find. It was worse than I expected. They'd taken everything they legally could, and then some. All the appliances were gone: refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, washer, and dryer. As Greg had said, the keys were on the kitchen counter, along with exposed wiring where light fixtures had been removed. In the bathrooms, they'd taken the shower heads, the towel racks, even the toilet paper holders. "They've stripped the place," Thomas observed, making notes on his clipboard. "Some of this may cross the line into property damage." I walked through each room, cataloging the destruction. In what had been my bedroom, they'd pulled up a section of carpet. In Amber's room, there were holes in the walls where shelving had been ripped out. The dining room chandelier, a fixture I'd loved since childhood, was gone. "Do you want to pursue further legal action?" Thomas asked. "We could make a case for damages." After giving it some thought, I shook my head. "No. All I want is for this to end." When Thomas departed, I took a seat on the bottom step of the staircase, which was the only available spot to sit because all of the furniture had been removed. There was a strange hush in the house, a thick, oppressive silence. In theory, I would have won. My home was back. How come I felt so empty then? My buddy Kayla sent me a text message that made my phone buzz. "How was it? Do you want me to visit?" "Please," I said. Kayla showed up 30 minutes later with a portable speaker, a bottle of wine, and takeaway Chinese cuisine. She said, "First aid for the soul," and placed everything on the kitchen floor. We sat cross-legged on the bare floor and ate straight from the containers. "So, what's next?" she said in between lo mein nibbles. Saying repairs first, I've already contacted contractors to get prices for the necessary items, such as appliances, electricity, and plumbing. After that, I'll choose to sell or stay. "And your mom?" I let out a sigh. "I'm not sure. A part of me wishes I would never talk to her again. Another part of her misses her former self." Kayla gave a sympathetic nod. "You don't need to make a choice today. Perhaps even this year." We opened the wine after supper. We strolled around each room as I gave my remodeling suggestions, which included new flooring, new paint, and updated fixtures to make the house seem like a home again, all while the music played quietly in the background. "My house," Kayla replied, "it's going to be beautiful and all yours." I slept on a blow-up mattress in my former bedroom that night. I slept better than I had in months, despite the pain. It's time to stop being cautious. No more feelings of guilt. I will no longer feel like an intruder in my own house. The dawn was beaming through my uncurtained windows when I woke up the next morning. I sat on the window seat, the one thing in my room they couldn't steal, and prepared a cup of instant coffee with a camping kettle Kayla had lent me. I felt something I hadn't felt in a while as I gazed out over the neighborhood rising up. I hope, for me as well as the house. I poured myself into remodeling over the following few weeks. There were new appliances delivered. The bathroom fittings were repaired by plumbers. Ceiling fans and light fittings were fitted by electricians. I selected cabinet hardware, flooring samples, paint colors, and other elements that would reclaim this space as mine. I kept the for sale sign up on the yard to remind myself that this was my decision, not because I was in a rush to sell. If I wanted to, I could sell. If I wanted to, I could remain. I made the choice alone, for once. During this period, Mom made one phone call. I let the voicemail go. "Robin," she said in a little, unsure voice as she started her message. "You're missed. Can we have a conversation? Please." I didn't answer the phone, but I did keep the voicemail. I might be prepared to reestablish that relationship at some point. Not yet, though. I have to repair myself first. I came to the realization that I wasn't quite ready to leave this place when spring approached and brought fresh life to the garden that Dad had cherished so much. These walls housed far too many memories, both priceless and heartbreaking. I removed the for sale sign and replaced it with flowers.